Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Be Encouraged Moments. As always, we are so grateful that you guys are here and that you're joining us in the conversation and watching these videos. And as always, we hope that you are sharing them with those who haven't found us yet. We've been doing a lot on the topic of Brandon the Bee, which obviously we're very excited about that. And we want to encourage you guys to go out and get the game or share it with those who might be interested in the game. But that is not what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to take a couple weeks off of that and focus back on some of our classic videos with you guys. Today, though, I'm going to do something different than I've done before. I think I've read stories to you guys before, and I'm sure that you guys have heard me over the years talk about how important I think children's books are in our lives, because I think they take very heavy topics and they break it down in such a way that it is understandable for a child. But I think that's very helpful for adults too. And I know that sounds really silly, but I mean, in all the years that I've been reading to Marley, and then even like the books that Jan wrote, there's so much wrapped up into such a simple story. And I know I could talk about Disney movies and I could talk about, Pixar movies, all those movies out there as well that have these hidden gems that I think really drive the point home in such an emotional way, or at least for me, and maybe I'm just a giant child at heart. But you guys are going to go along on the journey with me because I do think there's really great messages in books. And so I know I've read books to you before, but this is a new one. So this one is called Greedy Zebra. And the book is written by Mwenye, Hadithi, and Adrienne Kennaway. And I'm certain that I butchered those names, so we're going to see if we can get the camera. I'll write it down below so you guys can check it out. These books are freaking amazing. I was traveling through Africa and I found one of these books and I thought they were really cute, so I bought a couple of them. And then I fell in love with them. And so as we moved our way from Kenya to Tanzania to Uganda, back to Tanzania and then back to Kenya, I ended up purchasing, I think, 12 of these, and there's like 15 in the series. They just tell really great stories about not only African folklore, but also about, like I said, these little hidden gems and messages. So I'm just going to literally read it to you because I tried to figure out how to break it up and it was just too hard to do. So, as I said, the name is Greedy Zebra. Long, long ago, all the animals in the world were a dull, depressing color. No coats, no horns, no spots, and no stripes, just dull and dusty. Until one stormy day in the heart of the leafy forests of Africa, there was a great rumbling in the earth, and all of a sudden a huge cave appeared in the ground. A few of the animals crept cautiously up to the new and wonderful sight, and when the bravest of them peered into the darkness, he saw something glittering amongst the rocks. The cave was full of furs and skins, all glossy and new. Stepping inside, he came across horns and tails and countless shapes and sizes, and needles and threads of thousands of different colors. Trembling with excitement, he rushed out to tell the animals what he had seen. The news spread far and wide, and soon all the animals were on their way to see the cave, running and jumping, sliding and swinging, slithering through the trees. All, that is, except one, Greedy Zebra. Greedy Zebra never ever stopped eating. He certainly wasn't going to give up a single mouthful for a silly old cave of any sort. Lots of time to go visiting caves, mumbled Greedy Zebra, stuffing far too much grass into his bulging mouth. Plenty of time, he said. Soon, all the animals in the jungle were gathered at the mouth of the cave, waiting for Elephant to speak. Elephant was the one who knew everything, because Eagle told him all the secrets of the spirit of the mist. He coughed pompously and addressed the gathering. "It is time for you all to have coats," he said. "There are all kinds of materials here from which you may choose. You will be issued with needles by Rabbit, but there's only one needle each, so take good care of it. Now, you may go in, but no shoving and pushing, and keep in an orderly line." Meanwhile, Greedy Zebra was still eating. Munch, 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 he went. This particular grass is so delicious. He stopped to gape at the beautiful thing in front of him. It couldn't be, but it was. Sable the antelope, and she was wearing the most glorious new coat and horns. She was wearing horns. When Greedy Zebra heard that the coat and horns came from the cave, he trotted off as fast as his fat little legs could carry him. But he couldn't resist a leaf here, and a succulent blade there, and a blade of grass there, and oh, that patch too good to pass by without one little bite. From time to time, he met another and another. So all the animals are coming out with like their amazing coats, and the giraffes as we know them, and lions with their manes, and you get it, you get following them. And yet another, and so we got more. You got the hippo and all the fun guys in there, chameleon. Of the more and more of the wonderfully clothed animals, stopping for a last bite, not far from the cave, he watched Leopard finish her sewing. Leopard, as careful as usual, had sewn the most splendid fur coat with spots all over it. Greedy Zebra could hardly believe his eyes as he watched Leopard wiggle into the perfectly fitting fur. I shall have spots like that, he said to himself as he hurried off, eager to reach the cave. But it was a hot day, so he stopped for a cool drink at a stream, and there he came across a patch of the greenest grass he had ever seen. Delicious, he munched, smacking his chubby lips. Back at the cave, most of the animals were leaving. Only Rhino and Elephant were still cutting their material. They had chosen a very strong gray cloth. Poor old Rhino, who was very short-sighted, had stuck his horns on any old how and was having a terrible time. He was too nervous to ask Elephant for help because he knew that the pompous animal would only make fun of him. He had dropped his needle, and the more frantically he searched, the further into the bushes he kicked it. He put on the baggy coat and shuffled out in a very bad mood. Just then, the greedy Zebra trotted by with blades of grass bulging from his mouth. I'll have spots like Leopard, he says, and horns like Kudu, and a mane like a lion, and a tail like a cheetah. I shall be the finest-looking animal in the forest. And at the risk of indigestion, he gave a short gallop into the cave. Then he stopped aghast. This is what he envisioned he was going to look like. These pictures are amazing, by the way. There was nothing left. No horns, no fine clothing, nothing. Frantically, he searched through the cave, but all he could find were a few strips of black material. Forlornly, he cut them all the same size and stitched them together. It looks very tight, he thought nervously to himself. Being such a very fat zebra, he had a terrible time squeezing into his new coat. He pushed and he grunted and he oohed and he awed, and pop, he was inside. But what a tight fit. It was nearly bursting at the seams around his fat tummy. He trotted down to the stream to take a quick bite of a leafy bush, and pop, the coat burst open. Okay, and Jan loved this look. What? Pop, pop, pop. And you can see all the stripes are coming out. His tubby tummy squeezed through the seams. How the monkeys roared with laughter. To this day, his chubby stomach shines through his coat because he is so greedy. So what is the gem? What am I trying to tell you guys with this? And it's not so much the word greedy, because I think, in my mind, I think of different things when I think of greedy. But I think the message that I got out of this book is that how often do we get distracted by God's plans for us because we're so focused on what we think our plans are for us? There's a lot of different, little sidelines that I could take out of this. But when he was deciding what he was going to look like, and then he got to the cave and he found something completely different, and and the fact that he was distracted. He was distracted by so many things along the way. Now, granted, it was one very similar thing, but the message behind that is that I think in our lives we get distracted by the things that God doesn't intend for us, and we get off track, and we maybe don't always see it the way that God wants to see it, or we're not patient enough to wait for what God has in store for us. And so that was the message that I wanted to share with you today, and how much fun to do it in a fun, colorful storybook. Great. I think it's very important in all of the videos that we do with you guys, that what we're trying to get across to you is that God is in everything that you do, and God has a plan for you. So no matter where you are at this point in your life, just know that you're not alone, that we care, that God cares. Thank you, as always, for joining us for our Be Encouraged moment.